Hello, and thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to join me for a short session that will highlight some different things on the Lexis platform that could come in helpful when you start to work on your upcoming appellate advocacy assignment. Before we get into the whole research side of things, I want to start with some housekeeping items. The first thing I wanted to highlight for you is just how important it is to stay organized. So foldering is the best way to do that. If you haven't created a research folder before, you're just simply going to click onto the folder link at the top of the page. And then when you come into your folder section, you can simply click on the little plus sign to create a brand new folder. Now, once you have your folders created, if you wanted to create a subfolder, simply click on the main folder and then click on that little plus sign one more time, and this will allow you to create as many subfolders as you wish. One for cases, one for statutes, one for secondary, however you want to stay organized. The second thing I wanted to highlight for you is something we don't talk about all that often. You'll notice if you come to one of my Lexis sessions, I tend to focus all of my searching up here with that white search bar. However, in your situation, I felt like this potentially could be helpful to share a little bit about this Explore section. So Explore allows you to drill down through content. So I could look at documents by content type. I could look at all federal content, state content, or even practice area specific content. So once I click into practice area, I can pick criminal law and procedure. This will surface all of the different contents that we have on point to this practice area. And what I wanted to show you was simply under secondary materials, you have the ability to link out to all criminal law treatises, practice guides, and jurisprudence. If I click into that link, it's going to show you every secondary source, like a jurisprudence, a practice guide, or a treatise on point to criminal law and procedure. The one that I just kind of noticed earlier today when I was glancing through this that might be helpful is titled Courtroom Criminal Evidence. It might give you some insight into more about whether or not a warrantless search took place when somebody tested the key in the door. So just running a search through one of these practice guides potentially could give you some better understanding of the background and also provide you with some cases that you might be able to use in your brief. All right, I'm going to click back to the Lexis logo. There are two other things I wanted to talk to you about before we start researching, and they're two publications I think you might find helpful. The first one is written by a federal judge, and it's called Art of Advocacy. Let me go ahead and type that in, Art of Advocacy, and there we go. It drops here into that source wheel below. Click onto the source title. Then you have the option to run a search through that source, or you can jump down here below and just kind of drill down through this publication. What I like about it is this federal judge gives you do's and don'ts as well as checklists for both the written and oral argument with expert advice on how to prepare and present your case. So if you want a little bit of extra intel, I would definitely recommend checking out Art of Advocacy. A second publication I also would recommend is called Strategies on Appeal, and I could just type that into the search box and grab it from the wheel below, same thing as before. But Strategies on Appeal is written by an appellate lawyer out in California, and he shows you both how to litigate your appeal and also how to win your case. So those two publications I think are extremely useful and might provide you with some extra help if you need it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the research process. Okay, so our question that we're looking at here today is, does testing a key on an apartment door to ascertain a person's residence constitute a Fourth Amendment search requiring probable cause and a warrant? So that is our kind of overarching question. Now, one thing that you can do is just type your question into Lexis. I'm just using a previous question just to save time. But if Lexis can find you an answer to your question, it will automatically populate that on the very top of your site list for cases. So what's great is it will link you out to other secondary material, practice, practical guidance, or statutes that are also relevant. And I did not provide a state, but if you wanted to drill this down to a specific state, you could, and then this case would update with your answer coming from something more state specific. So you could try going ahead and answer or ask that question with the Lexis Answers option here in the search bar. So that's one thing that you could do. But I want to get into the process of how I actually would go about attacking your research assignment. So the first thing that I do is I do what's called track. So I literally list out on a piece of paper the letter T, the letter R, the letter A, and the letter C. So the letter T stands for what terms are going to be important when we conduct our legal research. So I sat down and came up with a few, one being key, one being key fob, maybe door, maybe warrantless search. How about expectations of privacy, maybe reasonable, maybe Fourth Amendment, curtilage, apartment, minimal intrusion, just a bunch of different words that might actually be helpful for conducting my legal research on Lexis. Now, the R in track stands for root extenders. Do any of those words I just mentioned need a root extender? Of all of those words, the only one I can think of that might benefit would be the word reasonable. So you might type in reason exclamation point, and that would get you reasoned, reasoning, reasonable, all of the different variations of that word. Now, the A in track stands for alternative terms. So if you can think, is there something out there that I could argue is similar enough in nature that while it isn't exactly the same, it should still follow that same premise of law? I couldn't really think of one. So I kind of left that blank. And then last in our track, TRAC, is connectors. How close in proximity do these words and phrases need to be in order to have a relationship with the other? So that is really step number one for me, is just setting out our track so that we know what we're looking for. What are we researching? Step number two is going to be to figure out what is that statute, that rule, that constitutional section, or the amendment at issue. And I believe we all know here, we're looking at a Fourth Amendment question. So rather than go through and run a search, I'm just going to go straight to the Constitution. So I start typing out U.S. Constitution and then grab it from that source wheel below. This is going to let me drill down through the Constitution, the very last section being those amendments. And when I click into the amendments, I can go ahead and just open up the Fourth Amendment. Now, here's the deal. This amendment itself is not very long. It's just a few sentences. However, all of those annotations, those notes to decisions, which are simply the best examples of the application of the law as it pertains to something more specific, those are pages and pages long. So notice here, I'm just going to show you. The Fourth Amendment itself, let me just go down here, is that big. It's super small. But notice we're in part 1 of 16. So there are 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different sections to this amendment when it comes to all of the cases that are the best examples of the application of the law. So this is step 3. We've already read the Fourth Amendment. So step 3 is to look at those notes to decisions. So it jumps me down here, and all I like to say with this is it's kind of set up like a table of contents. So if you wanted to click here into seeing whether or not something was reasonable as it pertains to the Fourth Amendment, you could click on that little link to the left of the number 8, and that would just drop you down into the section where they are talking about reasonableness and give you some potential cases that you might consider using in your research or with your research. So here's the problem. It's going to take you a long time to look through 16 pages and just kind of filter through using those titles, those topical headings. So you might try something else. This is just a suggestion. I started playing with the Control F key on my keyboard, and I just searched for the word key. And there are 32 references to the word key on this part 1 of 16, but not all of them are really relevant. So here's a whole section talking about keys, locks, and passcodes. That might contain some really good cases. So that's a great place to start. You can also just simply, I could click that little arrow to the left and drop myself into that section where they talk about that, or I could just continue on using my little bouncing through the document type thing. Notice whiskey bottles, it has the word key in it. Yeah, definitely not on point. So continue going on. And this is talking about key facts, also not relevant. So this can take you a minute, but I just say grab a cup of coffee and just start plumbing through them and getting through all 16 sections, looking for anything that might be helpful, talking about a word or phrase that could potentially be useful for your research. So that would be my step number 3. Step number 4 is to go ahead and shepherdize the Fourth Amendment. So what we're doing is we're trying to find a bunch of cases kind of working backwards. So I'm going to shepherdize the Fourth Amendment because I want to see every case that's ever cited to the Fourth Amendment. So notice here, I'm getting this kind of weird first page, and this is just showing me all of the different ways that courts have referenced the Fourth Amendment in cases. So there are 3 cases out there that have referenced it like this, but notice this one. This is the big one. This is the one we want. So I'm going to go ahead and click into that because there are, 256,000 cases out there referencing the Fourth Amendment in this manner. I think that seems like the best one for us. Now, here's the deal. I am looking at 256,000 plus cases citing to the Fourth Amendment. I'm not able to add in anything specific via words or phrases because there are too many citing references. So here's what I recommend that you do. Where it says analysis, come in here and click that little drop-down menu. And once it wants to participate, there we go. Click select multiple. So this is going to show you all of the different treatments that courts have given it, and all I want to do is go ahead and click select all. I want to know about all of those except for cited bys. If you're looking through this list of cases, anything that's a string cite, which is what cited by is not going to have any beef behind it. It's not going to give me any discussion or any food for thought. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. And that has brought my number down quite significantly. So I'm now looking at 7,396 cases. Now, of those, how many mention the word key within 4 words of door? Let's go ahead and just take a quick look. This is going to take it down from 7,000 down to, gosh, how many are we looking at now? 94, still a lot. But you guys get the idea. You can continually add in more words and phrases here. Maybe it's warrantless search, or maybe it's apartment, whatever you want to add in to see cases listed out here that talk about key within the first or within 4 words of door, and maybe talk about apartment, and also cited to the Fourth Amendment. So hopefully you'll find some good cases here that perhaps maybe you already found when you looked in that previous step using those notes to decisions. So kind of start jotting these cases down, take note of them. And then the next step into my research assignment would be to look at a secondary source. Now, you might consider doing this first. It's totally up to you. I'm just going to grab a search. So I've created this search, and I will include that in the handout so you don't have to worry about trying to remember it. But I've searched here for Fourth or IV because in some instances, the Fourth Amendment is referenced as a Roman numeral. But I want either of those to be mentioned no more than 3 words away from the word amend. So you have all of the variations on that ending with the exclamation point. And I want the word warrantless search to be mentioned within 30 of key and 30 of door. So this search is going to be very helpful to get us to information that will kind of bring us to warrantless searches, and then we can filter it down to whether or not that they deal with something more specific if you wish. I would recommend doing multiple searches and just switching out this little section here. So maybe instead of warrantless search, the next time you might search expectation of privacy or curtilage or whatever you wanted to search, but adding in those different words and phrases to see what you can find that might potentially be on point. So I've got 47 cases here talking about warrantless searches and talking about the Fourth Amendment as well as the words door and key. I think you might find some good cases in here. In fact, I'm pretty sure of it. So I would definitely recommend checking those out. I can also see there are 22 different secondary contents that might be helpful. And I saw one here is like constitutional law, Fourth Amendment, warrantless key test searches and residential door locks. It's pretty much exactly what we're talking about. So this article might give you some different perspectives to consider and things to think about as you begin to kind of sit down and start looking through all of your content. So you might find some good stuff there. So secondary sources obviously provide you with information about a topic you might not know a whole bunch about. But in addition to that, secondary sources are usually riddled with footnotes, and footnotes contain cases. So that's why I like to look at secondary materials. And sometimes I put this as step number 1, sometimes I put it as step number 4, step number 5. It all just depends. You might also consider looking to other people's briefs on point to your topic. So I'm going to click on more. I've got briefs, pleadings, and motions, I might go ahead and just restrict it to just briefs out there that we're talking about warrantless searches as it pertains to keys and doors and the Fourth Amendment. So I like to look at other people's briefs simply because it shows different arguments that they've tried to make and cases that these attorneys have used to support their arguments. So this will kind of give you some different things to think about, some different ideas that you might try applying to your own set of facts. Okay. Next, I go ahead and I look at cases. I take a look through here. Are there any cases that I haven't found yet? Maybe that might potentially be useful for my research. Or is it kind of just reaffirming that the ones that you've found are kind of the ones that keep coming up over and over? Remember, we're in the graphical view, which is this colorful view, which allows you to just jump through the document to the different references. So if you wanted to see all references to the word warrantless search, I could find the little yellow on this little toolbar and just jump around to get some context of how that was being discussed. Now that is our graphical view. If you click into Ravel view, remember, this exports the top 75 cases from that list of results and exports them onto a chart. Now dates are along the left, courts are along the left, dates are along the bottom. And how this works in the event that you don't already know is the larger the sphere, the more influential the case, all right? So these could potentially be very, very helpful for your upcoming assignments. For example, if I click onto this, this very big, large sphere on the left, that bumps that case up to number 1 in my list on the right-hand side of my screen. So what if this said number 50? The likelihood of you paging forward through 5 pages of results to find this case is very unlikely, at least for me. I don't go on Google and search more than 3 pages worth of information if I'm looking for something, so I'm pushing it at 5 pages for sure. So when you click onto that document, not only does it pop it up to the top, it shows you citation relationships to the other 74 cases on your cite list. And the colors right down here will correspond with the Shepherd signals. So I can see that this case is distinguishing itself from this, and here is why. It will tell you why. Now, if you have 2 relatively same-sized spheres in the swim lane, so a swim lane goes from left to right, here's the Supreme Court swim lane, Circuit Court swim lane, District Court, so on and so forth. If you have 2 similarly sized circles, the one that's higher in the swim lane is more relevant to what you searched. So I would probably start here with this case on the right. That would be my number 1. Okay. So let's go ahead and click into that case. I wanted to show you just a couple of recommendations on how you can expand your research from a great case. So let's go ahead and assume that this Bain case keeps popping up over and over and over, and we're like, gosh, this is a great starting point. What you can do is take a look at those head notes. If you happen to find a head note, which is simply an important point of law that was taken from the case and pasted to the top of this document, if you like this important point of law, then I would recommend clicking on Shepherdized Narrow by this head note. So here it's telling us in parentheses there are 6 cases out there that have cited to the Bain case for the reason mentioned in head note number 1. So if you like head note number 1, you might also like these 6 cases. Now notice there are 65 total decisions that are citing to Bain, but only 6 of them cited to it for this reason in head note number 1. So that's the first way I'd recommend that you expand your research from a great case. The second thing that you might consider doing is when you're reading through a document, notice I kind of pulled my mouse over this paragraph and it populated this little search bar or the search icon on the right-hand side of the screen. If I take my mouse and I click onto that, it's going to give me the option to search for more cases that are similar in nature to this actual passage. Now, what I love about this feature is that it's not just doing a natural language Google-style search with the text from this paragraph. Instead, what it's using is what's called semantic search. And so it's trying to truly understand what's being discussed here and giving some context with the citations that it's using. And when you click on that, it will surface other cases over here on the right-hand side of the screen that could potentially be helpful and have a similar discussion based upon what's included in this paragraph. Now, there are going to be instances, for example, this paragraph above, there is no little icon. So it's not available for every paragraph, but if you find it and it pops up on the right-hand side, that could definitely help jumpstart your research. The last tip I'm going to give you is located over here. So when I come onto this side of the document and I come down to Legal Issues Trail, keep in mind that you can turn on that button and it's going to put purple dotted boxes all throughout your case. And basically, this is just going to encompass all of those important points of law. So yes, of course, headnotes are included, but guess what? It also includes different sections of this case that didn't rise to the importance of a headnote. So anytime that you see a purple dotted box, you can take your mouse, click inside. This will do two things for you. It's going to show me every case that the Bain court used to come upon that conclusion of law in that purple dotted box. And then directly below that, you're going to see every other case out there that has cited to Bain for that exact same issue in that purple dotted box. So if you like what's in that purple dotted box, you're definitely going to want to check out these 7 cases that are being surfaced for you right here. And that, my friends, is pretty much everything I wanted to show you to kind of get you on and get you started with your actual research. The one final thing, oops, let me go back to my start page. I'm not sure what happened there. There are 2 final things I wanted to mention. Don't forget that your research history saves for you for 90 days. So you have all of your searches, the documents you've looked at, and your Shepherd's reports up here at the top. Also at the top of this page, you'll find the little vertical ellipses. You can chat with a reference attorney. This chat feature is available 24 hours a day, 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday. They don't allow chat on weekends, don't know why. But you can always call the reference attorneys. It's 1-800-45-LEXIS, and you can literally ask them anything. You could say, hey, can you help me draft a search to pull back X, Y, or Z? Or can you help me figure out how to tweak my search? Or can you help me how to locate XYZ document? Whatever it might be, our reference attorneys are absolutely fantastic, and you can reach them at any time, 24/7, 365 days a year. The last and final thing I will tell you is brief analysis. If you guys haven't tried this before, it's pretty impressive. If I click into brief analysis, what this allows you to do is just jump out to your paper and upload it to this brief analysis platform. Let me go ahead and grab a sample document. Where is one? This will work right here. Go ahead and open this up. And what I want you to know is that you can't just upload a set of facts. You're going to have to upload work product in order to have any kind of value from this platform. So you're going to have to say, be like, I don't know, 3/4 of the way, maybe a little bit more done with your project before you try to use brief analysis. What brief analysis will do for you is give you some recommendations of cases, of treatises, of arguments that you can make even as you kind of go through the writing process. So if I click on to recommendations, I can come down here and find some cases as well as arguments that I might consider using to beef up this section of my document. But not only that, it's going to give you briefs that are similar in nature to what you're writing about. So you might look at other people's briefs to, again, find arguments that they've made and cases that they've cited to kind of help kind of move yours along as well. Cited in your document is just going to surface all of the citations that you've referenced. The one thing I will share with you, this is brand new this semester. We've added this, this citation could not be verified option here. So in light of what happened over the summer with the attorneys who were sanctioned for using ChatGPT and citing 2 fake cases, this will now identify fake cases. So this does not exist, but what Lexis does do is it provides you with the next closest citation, but we also make sure that we couldn't find this citation. Just wanted to share that with you because it's just a recent addition. The last thing here, you can also check your quotations to make sure that you quoted everything correctly and that it matches what is on Lexis. And that, my friends, is everything I wanted to show you. And I say best of luck to you with your upcoming assignment. And if you have any questions, please never hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much for taking time to listen and have a great rest of your day.